Today, I'd like to talk about the exhaustion that comes with physical activity. We've had beautiful weather here in Indiana the past few days, so with that, I like to get outside and do what I can around my yard. Physical activity is related to function and fatigue. I'll share what the research says, a little tip from an online article, my personal story, and my final thoughts. In 2018, a study on how lifestyle physical activity relates to multiple symptomology domains in women with fibromyalgia was completed. In this study, women between the ages of 20 and 70 years old who were diagnosed with fibromyalgia showed poorer functional outcomes and greater fatigue when they performed the lowest levels of lifestyle physical activity. And let me say that since this involved only women, it doesn't mean that men are not also affected. But you men out there, please let me know. They found that there was no relationship between lifestyle, physical activity, and pain sensitivity, or psychological constructs. But the data does suggest that, quote, physical activity levels are more likely to affect function and fatigue, but have negligible relationships with pain and pain-related psychological constructs in women with fibromyalgia, unquote. Those with poorer functional outcomes and greater fatigue were compared to those with higher physical activity participation. So this past weekend, I got some things done outside. It got up to the 80s during the day, and I was even wearing sandals, no socks. I got up about 9:30 in the morning each day, which is sleeping in for me. I often do that on the weekends because my husband is home and can look after our puppies. I've really overdone it a few times, and that resulted in more pain for sure. But this past weekend, the things I did was nothing too horrible. I was just tidying. And I did this all over 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. For example, I wanted to clean up our little bird bath in the front. It had rust on it, so I used steel wool and scrubbed the rust off it as much as I could, cleaned that off with water, and after it dried, I spray painted it with Rust-Oleum spray paint. And we'll see how that holds up. It took 2 coats of colored paint and 2 coats of a clear coat. Then I sprayed off our front porch doormat. It needs to be pressure washed, but I'll do that when I pressure wash our front porch. I also went around our house with weed killer. I did laundry in between and dishes. I swept my porches off, front and back. That's about it, because in between and during those activities, I took breaks. But by 3:30 or 4 on Sunday, I was done. I was sitting in this computer room, in that chair back there, when my husband entered the room and asked me what was wrong. I could barely get the words out. I'm tired. Not sleepy, exhausted. I didn't want to move or talk. I just felt frozen. That's what happens to me. No words, no desire to move. I don't want to talk because it's too difficult to get the words out. not because I can't think of the words, it's just exhausting to do so. So by 4:30 on Sunday, I took my evening bath. My husband said, "Already in the bath, huh?" "Yeah," I said. That's when he knew I was done for the day. My feet were killing me as usual. That's the hardest part. I mean, you got to walk on your feet. I put my nightgown on and sat back in my chair. There's a TV up on the wall right there where I can watch YouTube videos. This is one of my happy places. After supper, and I'm blessed that my husband cooks, we went to bed to watch TV as we do every night. About an hour and a half after the movie was over, I got a second wind. By then, my husband's fast asleep. He's an early riser. That's when I got my dishes done. But how do you do with physical activity? Do any of you experience this kind of exhaustion after a lot of movement? I mean, I feel like a zombie. It's just the way it is, and that's okay. I know this is going to happen. I'm in my home, my safe place, my happy place. I want to continue to live. I know I can't do what I once did and may never be able to, but that's okay too. But I can work towards being able to do more each day. I keep a positive outlook on my life. It makes me happy to see my porch swept and that bird bath clean. My mood in general is better after activity, after I get through the exhaustion. I think positivity is the answer to my quality of life. And of course, my faith is most important. But do you experience more pain? Maybe I've built up my endurance. I don't know, but just wondering how you fare. One thing I do know is that I can't stop moving because that is when the pain and stiffness can get out of control. I'm hoping that my endurance and strength will continue to get better. I mean, I'm way better than I was when fibro first hit. And I don't want to end up with cardiovascular problems either. And I'd like to mention that all the while I'm doing these things around the house, my husband is very busy doing the activities that he likes to do. He worked on the garden, mowed the lawn, cooked supper. And I want to contribute to our home too. I want to feel like I'm making a difference. So back to the study. And this study stated that they weren't sure if better function and quality of life resulted in greater physical activity levels or that greater physical activity resulted in improved function and quality of life. But the strongest correlations involved lifestyle physical levels to function, physical quality of life, and movement fatigue. These researchers stated that increasing daily physical activity has the potential to improve function, improve physical quality of life, and reduce movement-evoked fatigue in this population. In an article by Everyday Health, it says, quote, "Physical function responds very quickly to aerobic activity, and many people with this syndrome become deconditioned. They live on their couch, especially when fibromyalgia disrupts their sleep," unquote. That was a quote from a fibromyalgia expert who is also an RN and Ph.D. She also says, quote, exercise may also be disease modifying, unquote. This means it may change the course of fibromyalgia. In the same article, a clinical exercise specialist says to, quote, start slow and go slow to prevent a flare, unquote. Take your time and progress steadily. Don't overdo it. And if you're in a flare, only do range of motion and flexibility work as you can tolerate. And once symptoms subside, you can gradually restart exercise because you have to find where your limits are. So my final thoughts. I know that sunlight has a positive effect on our mood. I remember in the early days of fibro, I would go outside and try to do the things I did before I had fibro, but I'd always end up in tears. Our youngest son was living at home this one specific time, and he came outside after my husband couldn't figure out what I needed, and my son helped me. I wasn't making any sense. I was crying hysterically. I was trying to use the shovel to clear something in the front garden area, and I couldn't do it. Once upon a time, I could have. So my son got that done for me. My husband was doing something else in the yard at the time. And then my son helped me get up off the steps and took me in the house. I knew it was the right thing. I'd hit rock bottom. So what's my point? Know your limitations. Work up to doing things gradually and don't give up. I'm sure there are some of you out there that can do way more than I can, and some who are in those early days of learning. And that's okay. We're on a journey together. I hope you learned something today. I send you gentle hugs and support. Love you.